Welcome back to the THC Launchpad. My name is Doc, and today we're going to be talking about website design and how to go about it for your cannabis business. If you watched the last video, you know we were talking about, looking at all of the different assets that you might need for your brand in your marketing and which ones to prioritize. One of the first ones we looked at was website. And so today we're just going to look at what goes into creating a good website, how to go about it, how to do it well, and how to not spend too much money on it while still getting good quality. The first question you need to ask before you build the website is, why do you need a website? And if you're not 100% sure you need a website, then maybe you don't need one and you can just skip to something else. But if you know that your website is important, then this is the video for you, and that's what we're going to be looking at. And so that first question of why do you need a website, that's going to tell you how much to invest in it. And if you're an e-commerce business, if you're going to be selling through your platform, or if you need your website for SEO because you're hoping people find you in Google searches, then your website and your SEO is going to be really important. We're going to look at SEO in a different video to go into all the specifics, but I will probably come back to it a few times in this video to mention it. And so if you're like, oh, what is SEO, or do I need it or not, go to that other video to learn more about it. And so one more thing about e-commerce. If you are an e-commerce business, the best example is if you're an online CBD store, or if you're a dispensary that's going to be selling online, then this approach to your website is going to be so different than everyone else, all the other businesses that might be watching this video, because your website is the most important thing, and you're going to have to make that investment, and you're going to have to really think through the decisions of who's hosting your website and are they friendly to cannabis. Because if you're selling online, then you have two really important things to think about. One is the platform that's hosting the website cannabis friendly, or are they going to shut down my site? And two, how am I taking payments? And is the payment method, friendly to cannabis, or are they going to shut down taking payments? Now, if you are a retail business, you're going to be dealing with payments anyway, and so you probably already know about it. But if you're just an online business, maybe this is the first time I'm sure you've thought about it, but it's like hand in hand with the website. And so it's going to be really important to find that payment option that works now and is not going to go away and stop working. Hopefully, based on the recent changes in scheduling, rescheduling, hopefully it's going to be easier and easier to find payment options. Okay, so you know that you need a website. The next question you need to ask is, what is the platform that's I'm going to be building the website on? Primarily, there are two options that we would recommend. If it's e-commerce, then there might be some other options as well. So let's leave aside the e-commerce for a moment. The two major options that I would recommend are either WordPress or Wix. Now, everyone has probably heard of WordPress. It's the most dominant platform out there. And you probably also know that it's kind of a headache, and it's not easy to work with. And over time, it kind of becomes a Frankenstein pretty quickly. And it needs to be maintained. And so that's one reason that it's not the first recommendation that we give people. Another thing about WordPress versus Wix is it's just as more expensive to build a website with WordPress, because it takes more time to build. There are more options. It's harder. So that's another kind of strike against WordPress. Now, people that may or may not be familiar with Wix, it is a all-in-one, kind of almost all-in-one. There are some things that it doesn't do, but it is a platform that you build it on there. It hosts your website as well, and it's much easier for a person that doesn't know a lot about programming or web design, you could just go in and in a matter of a couple hours watching a few videos, you could build your own website, and they have templates that are just sitting there for you to make a ready-made website, and it can be plug and play. And if you are a company that doesn't really need a website, but you're like, I want to have a website, so if people find us, that if they want to look us up online, we'll have something there. It doesn't need to be extensive. It's not going to be something that we have to update a lot. Then you could go in and do a Wix website yourself, or you could hire us. It's a lot cheaper for us to build a website because it's quicker for us to build, which means it's cheaper for you to hire us, and it's easier for you to maintain moving forward, because unlike with WordPress, where it's all these different plugins and they're always having to be updated, and if you don't update it, then they get old, and when WordPress updates, the plugins may not be compatible. With Wix, that's all done out of your view, right? They're doing all that on the back end for you. You don't have to maintain it. They're doing the updates. They make sure everything is backwards compatible, or every once in a while, every few years, they're like, we're updating the whole thing. And you go in and it's like, oh, it's all different, but the website looks the same. They didn't change any of that. And so you're not losing functionality over time, and it's not getting slower and harder to manage over time. Wix is just a lot more elegant as a solution, and a lot cheaper. So another big difference between the two, WordPress and Wix, is that WordPress, it's just the design side. It's what you use to build the website, but they're not hosting the website. You need a separate host to do that. Whereas with Wix, like I said, it's both together. So what's a web host, and how is it different than the platform where you build the website? Well, a company like GoDaddy, which I'm sure you've heard of, or domain.com does, or these websites hosts, Green Geeks is one that we recommend. They host your website, but they don't build your website for you. You have to build their website and host it on their servers. And they are all pretty much the same. Any of the ones that you would use as a host are pretty much the same, and they're all kind of bad. So why would anyone use WordPress? Well, there's a few reasons. There are certain things that are just going to be better in a WordPress site. Now, first of all, if you're doing e-commerce and you're selling cannabis, Wix isn't going to be an option. CBD is an option, but it has some restrictions. And so CBD on Wix, possible, but maybe not ideal. Selling cannabis on Wix, impossible. But WordPress also has a lot of problems because of the payment options and all the things that we talked about. So if you're selling cannabis online, I would recommend going to a company like Dutchy. That is their whole thing, Dutchy and other services, Proteus, there's others that you'll find if you do a quick Google search. Their whole business is just around, we create your online store so people can come and buy cannabis. And so they handle all that stuff for you. They all kind of look the same. And so the store part is done through Dutchy. Now, most businesses will still want to have their storefront, a website which is kind of like the storefront, but it also has the About Us, it has maybe a gallery, maybe it has an FAQ, it has all the things that you would have on a website besides just the shop. Dutchy doesn't do that very well. And so for what we would recommend is like, oh, we're going to have a Dutchy site. So then we want a site that'll interact with that. And then what makes the most sense is just a simple Wix site that's going to have those things I just mentioned, your About Us, your FAQ, your blog, any of those things that you would have on your website. Do it on Wix, it's simple, and then you just have a button that says store, buy now, it could be a bunch of different things. They click on that and they go to your Dutchy page. And they can kind of just go back and forth as necessary. But there are other reasons why you might need a WordPress. Maybe you need a store locator. Wix doesn't always do a great job of store. If it's a simple one, it's like, oh, I have 3 dispensaries. Okay, that'll be fine. No problem in Wix. But if you're a 200 chain CBD store, then maybe and you want a lot of functionality, Wix may not have all the functionality you want. Again, like we do have a client that is a huge national CBD chain, and we built their website on Wix for them specifically to be able to find their stores, but they didn't need a lot of functionality, so it was very simple. But sometimes they're like, hey, can it do this? I'm like, no, it can't do that. And they're like, well, it's not too important, and it's too late now because we already made that decision. But if you know, like having that store locator or something else that's very dynamic, where there's going to be some programming involved, Wix may not be the best option for that because it doesn't do everything. It's not possible to do everything on Wix. And so you figure out, oh, this thing, we can't do it on Wix. We need a WordPress. So you need to figure out what web host to use. I already said web hosts are lame, most of them. And so what I would recommend is don't just go with the cheapest one. Don't just go with GoDaddy or HostGator or one of the ones just because you've heard of it. Invariably, their customer service is terrible and people hate them. And there's a reason, because their customer service is terrible and so is the product they provide. I would invest a little bit more money. It's only going to be a matter of, at most a couple $100 over the course of 3 to 5 years. Is find the one that has the best reviews and is established. It's well established and it has great customer reviews. Go with that one. We've been recommending Green Geeks for a while, and quite frankly, the service has gone down gradually over time to the point where I'm starting to look for a new one. And I don't even want to recommend one because I might like it now, and a year from now it's going to be trash. And it's just the way it works with hosting, which is why, again, I recommend Wix. Wix is not perfect, but it's better than all these other alternatives. So real quickly, a few other things to think about as you're building out your website and figuring out how to go about it. Some questions that you need to think about. Who's going to be updating the website? If it's you, again, Wix is probably the better option, but make sure it's an option that you're familiar with. If you've worked in WordPress for years and you're familiar with it and you don't want to learn something new, that's the most common reason we build a WordPress site, is because the person we're building it for knows it and doesn't want to learn something new. They know the drawbacks, but they're familiar with it. But whoever's going to be doing the updating, that person needs to be happy with the choice. What about the photography for the website? We talked about photography in the last episode as one of the assets that you want to invest in. If you're building a website, you're going to need good photos. You could use stock. You could even use AI, but it's going to look like stock photography or AI photography. So if you're building your website, you're probably going to need to invest in at least one photo shoot of your facilities, of your products, both, of your team. Whatever it is you want to show on your website, you need good photos, because how good your website looks is 90% based on the photos on the website. If you have bad photos, it doesn't matter how good the design is. They're going to look at the photos first and be like, oh, this is trash. And last thing to think about is blog. We're going to talk about SEO later, but I will say now, SEO is one of the best investments that you can make in your brand, in your marketing. The ROI is among the highest, among the highest options that you have. You're going to get the most ROI with SEO. A big part of that is going to be your blog. And so whether you're WordPress or Wix, you're going to be able to have a blog, and then it's just a matter of who's going to be updating the blog. How often are you going to be updating it? Think about that. Doing your blog on Wix is really easy. Doing it on WordPress, it's a little bit harder learning curve, but once you know it, it's not that hard. You can update it pretty quickly on your own. But if the question is, should you have a blog? If people are going to be finding you online, or you're imagining you want people finding you online, then a blog, 100% yes, you're going to need it. If you're not in any way interested in people finding you through the internet, most likely because you're a grower and you have hundreds of growers in your state that you're competing with, no one is finding no one's finding their flower on, by doing a search in terms of dispensaries. Customers are, but the customers can't buy it from you. They can only buy it from the dispensaries. So it's the dispensaries that need the SEO, not the grower. Quickly summarize. The most important decision is, do you need a website? If the answer is yes, how are you going to host the website? Is it going to be a WordPress site or a Wix site? WordPress needs a host. Wix is the host. And if you're an e-commerce site, then you're going to need a different option, and that option probably is going to be Dutchy. It might be Shopify if you're CBD. It might be Wix if it's a small shop. It might be WordPress if it's a larger shop. But if you're an e-commerce, then there's a whole lot more that goes into it. That could almost be a separate video. And then once you've figured out how to do it, then you're going to need good photography, maybe video, maybe not. And you want it to be SEO friendly, which you'll see in a different video. So that's all that goes into it. If you're going to build a website, make sure it's good. Hire a professional. Hire us or someone else that you find in your area that you trust. Because a bad website is worse than no website at all. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for putting up with my scattered thoughts. I really appreciate it. I just have so much I want to get out and don't always do it in the most straightforward way, but I really hope this helped. Feel free to reach out for me. You can schedule a free consultation if you're like, I do need a website, but I have some questions about it. I'm happy to answer your questions. You can find my information on the website, or you can, fill out our contact form and we'll get back to you. And please like and subscribe to this video, and I will see you guys next time.